This
scripting.
conference will now be recorded.
Okay.
So that was the reason I want to learn Groovy because
So
I was
Power BI and
completely have.
which
I
technology
don't
you
have
are
any
looking?
knowledge on. Sorry.
Which technology you are looking in data governance? Power BI, Groovy.
Yeah, Power BI, SQL with Groovy. Yeah,
Okay. So is it a DE, data engineering style like that?
yeah, exactly. It's completely related to data science and data analytics. That field.
Correct. Understand. Okay. So do you know where exactly Groovy is using there?
Inside Colibra tool,
Hmm.
in data governance, we use different tools and platforms to implement data governance in the organizations, like Informatica, Colibra,
Hmm.
Alation. Like these are some of the tools. So especially we are looking into Colibra tool. Inside the Colibra tool, when creating the data assets and when we try to import the data into the data assets, we'll be using the Groovy scripting.
Okay. Got it. Sairam, how about you? Where exactly you are using in CPI? SAP CPI.
Some based upon requirement, Babu,
Okay.
client requirement. Some
Hmm.
different structures need to. Example from one sender is there and the receiver is there.
Hmm.
CPI is the integration tool to different systems between two different systems merge for the using Groovy script.
Okay. Fine. So means like you both said like you don't know even other programming languages, so need to start from basic, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So myself, I'm Babu. I'm working as a DevOps engineer. Okay. Currently, I have 13 plus years of experience. So if you see the relevant DevOps, almost 6 plus years, maybe 7 years like that. And we also use most of the times Python, Groovy, and then also shell scripting, PowerShell, depending on the requirement. Same. So sometimes we use a to automate some Linux administration tasks, those things using with shell scripting. And for pipelines like Jenkins and all, we use Groovy. Not only that, we also use for some other, the application installation purpose, we write a Groovy scripts. And Python also we use in the Ansible. Okay. So like that we are using. Okay. And similarly, I do have a training experience since starting. So same 13 plus years of experience I have. But right, so Groovy people started recently. We can say it is more craze because of this data engineering and data science. Also the DevOps, especially working with Jenkins and all. And now trending with the SAP CPI. So almost now most of the batches, like corporate batches, we are getting directly the SAP CPI batches. But the training online like this, very rare people are getting, means only who all are looking for Groovy. Some people, they don't know what is Groovy also. Right. So only requirement people will come general. But Python, if you say like many people knows, and then different technologies people are using, even students also join. So that is the reason less crowd generally for Groovy. But I do have other batches like DevOps, Python. We have many people there. Okay. But what exactly we'll cover in this Groovy, and we'll see in the demo how many hours duration and what exactly we are going to cover, and is that sufficient for writing the Groovy scripts in our environment. We'll try to understand. So basically, see, Groovy is very simple. You don't need to think like Java or other programming languages. The only reason, simply Groovy we are using for administration related most of the times. So which means if you want to automate any administration related, and then simply like Python, how we can do, like shell scripting, how we can do the same style we can do with Groovy also. But only the dependency is, if you want to use Groovy, Java is mandatory. So means the Java skill not mandatory. You have to install Java first because it works on JVM. So JVM means Java Virtual Machine. So whenever if you are executing the Groovy script, it actually use JVM internally. So that's the reason Java is mandatory if you want to work with Groovy. And second thing, every time when we execute any function or any module, internally it will invoke the Java modules. Let's say, for example, I want to print something, or let's say I just want to execute some function. But how this Groovy understands that function, internally it will import automatically the Java modules. So you'll understand these all things. So which module it will invoke, how we can identify that, everything you'll understand that. And second important thing here, I told that Java skill is not required, but sometimes let's say I have a Java code and also I have a Groovy code. Both scripts I want to execute. Means I have a Java program and then Groovy program. Both files I want to execute. That is possible with Groovy. But that is not possible with Java. So means, see, now you try to understand this, you'll get idea what exactly. So simply we can treat this Java as a subset of Groovy. So means let's say I have a Java code. So this is a something Java code. Assume this is something like a sample dot Java. So Java code extension dot Java we use. And here it is a Groovy code. So Groovy code extension we use dot Groovy. Okay. Now, if we have a Java program, first we compile the code with Java C, and then it will generate some dot class file. So I hope you know compiler and interpreter. We will discuss if you are not aware, because this is mandatory. We need to understand what is compiler, what is interpreter. So everything internally it works based on that. So compiler means, okay, now you take Java code here. Sorry. Yeah. So if you take Java code here, assume we have this 3 lines of code or maybe 5 lines of Java code here. Okay. So these 5 lines, it is in English, right? So simply we can say it's a human understandable code. I'll show you just, let's say I want to print something, hello world program in Java. Just for your understanding, I'm just showing this. Now if you see hello world program, so this is the code here. So there are minimum 1, 2, 3, 4 or 4 or 5 lines of code we have. This is in Java. So this is a English, right? Here it is English, right? So now we can see class, CLASS. This is all English. But how system it understands when I execute this code? So the system always it understands only zeros and ones. It will not understand this English directly. So means the operating system it understands only zeros and ones. But how this Java code is understanding now when I execute? Similarly, how the Groovy code is executing when I execute. The OS is not understanding the Groovy code directly. So that's the reason we have a compilers and interpreters. So what is compiler job here? Compiler first it will check all the line syntax errors. Now first line, second line, third line, like that. All the lines it will check each and every line syntaxes. And if there is no syntax error, immediately it will convert into system understandable language. That is like zeros and ones. So that is actually here. We are calling like if in case if it is a C language, it will create an object file dot obj. And if it is a C++ Java, any object oriented programming, it creates dot class file. So this is something dot class or dot object file is nothing but system understandable code. So means compiler first it will verify all the line syntaxes. If no syntax error, it is trying to convert into system understandable code, that is dot class file here. And then we have to execute that dot class file, we'll get the output. So simply, if you want to understand more in detail, assume, okay, so here, assume here, Babu, okay. So assume Babu knows only Telugu language. Babu knows only Telugu. So I can understand Telugu and speaks Telugu, okay. And someone here, assume, I'll take your names, Durga and Sairam. So Durga knows only English, right? So Durga knows only English. Babu knows only Telugu. Now tell me how to communicate these two people here.
We need someone who is a translator.
Yeah, now Sairam, who knows Telugu and English, now he is a translator here. And whenever Babu is speaking in Telugu, Sairam is understanding and then immediately translating to the Durga English. And then Durga will understand that. And then again Durga will reply in English. Sairam will understand that and then translate to Telugu. So then we have a communication between Babu and Durga. So now here Sairam is what? Translator, Telugu to English, English to Telugu. Similarly, whenever if you are writing any program, that is a high level language which is a human understandable language, means we can understand that language, but system it will not understand. So system always it understands mission level, that is zeros and ones. So we have a translator, that is a compiler, which is converting this high level programming to system understandable code. And then again the system is giving output, and then that output again it is converting into human understandable code. So means that is in high level again. So that is how internally the compiler is working. But there is a lot of difference between compiler and interpreter. I don't want to confuse now itself. We will see with practically how it works internally. Later we'll discuss. But the point here is compiler is basically what? Understanding the high level code and then converting into system understandable code, basically, right? So any language if you are using in the world, maybe it works based on compiler or maybe based on the interpreter. Now, when I write something Java code, the Java code, if you want to use using with the Groovy, first you need to compile, and then later, once if it generated something dot class file, that dot class file directly you can use in the Groovy code to execute the Java code. Try to understand. First, we need to compile that Java code, and that compiled Java code you can import in Groovy and then you can execute it. Or let's say I don't want to use the Java code. I want to use Groovy code directly. Okay, you can write directly Groovy code or you can import this file and then you can execute it. There are multiple ways we can do. So here simply You can execute with the Groovy interpreter any Java code. You can execute with the Groovy interpreter any Groovy code. So means Groovy code is separate, Java code is separate. But with the Groovy interpreter, we can execute the Java code. We can also execute the Groovy code. But with the Java compiler, you can only execute the Java code. You cannot execute the Groovy file. That is what I am trying to explain here. I hope you understood. So with the Groovy interpreter, we can execute Java code as well as Groovy code. But with the Java compiler, we can only execute the Java code, but not the Groovy code. Why like that? So the simple reason is Groovy is flexible whenever you want to write. Let's say, assume that, okay, I just want to write some print hello world statement. Groovy says that why class is required for that. Why class is required? You can write just with one line. So simply in Groovy, we just write here same function but just print ln we write. Say this. See, most of the functions it is from Java only, but you don't need to write this many lines of code, and you don't need to write semicolon. Even you don't need to write open and closed parenthesis, also optional. Simply you can write like this, println. So now I'm not writing any class statement here, but it works in Groovy, but it will not work in Java. So in Java, it's a pure object-oriented programming. Every time you should write class and then you need to write based on that the code. You need to create some object and then need to execute. But in Groovy, you can directly write like a procedure-oriented style. But whenever if it is required object-oriented, we can write with class statement also. Means Groovy can write as a procedure-oriented as well as object-oriented based on the requirement. When we use object-oriented with Groovy, we have a framework called Grails. Let's say if you want to develop some applications with MVC framework, then it is required. But most of the times, Groovy now people are using in the platform related, which means like maybe we are working with some particular platform already, maybe with cloud or maybe with Jenkins or maybe with some other platform. But there, if you are using the Groovy, you don't need to write object-oriented program. So means we are trying to automate something in the platform related. So simply we write with a procedure-oriented programming code. But whenever if you want to develop some application, like fully like I want to develop some application and then which it involves MVC framework model with controller. There actually we go with object-oriented programming. But for that web development, right? Just a minute. Okay, just give me a minute. Okay. Okay. So for that web development, people are using already these programming languages like Java or .NET, these languages. Then why Groovy, right? Groovy also can use, as I told, with a combination of Grail's framework. But we can say it is very less. So now you need to understand here the programming languages like Java or C++ or .NET very much famous for application developments, or we can say web application developments, right? But Groovy, Python, something like PowerShell, these all are very much famous for automation. So automation in the sense, it's not test automation I'm talking. Anything, if you want to automate, whatever manually we are doing, I want to automate that. Maybe assume, let's say I'm installing some application and I'm executing some command to install that. I don't want to do manually execution that command every time. We can simply write a program and then we can automate that. That is something like a automation. So most of the times here we use the platform related. So this is a platform related, maybe with something DevOps combination or data engineering combination or cloud combination like that. So these languages are very much famous for automation, and these programming languages famous for web application. Now the question is again, can we use Java to automate this? Yes, but it is very difficult. So means, do you think like to, let's say I'm executing a command, but to execute that command, if you are writing something fully object oriented programming, class statement and then methods, everything to execute just one command, then again it is difficult. Let's say administrator again need to learn the complete object oriented programming, right? What is class, what is object, how it creates everything. It is difficult job. So simply that's the reason here we have a scripting languages to automate this all administration related jobs. So means you don't need to write those things. You can simply directly what need to run, then just write it and then execute it. It works. So that is possible with these languages, right? So Groovy also in that list only here. And it is famous because of this automation, the platform related automation. Okay, now, as I told, see now, if you want, let's say, hello world, I want to run. It is very simple. First, we need to check whether Groovy installed or not. I already installed. So I can see like Groovy hyphen hyphen version. This is the command. So since it's installed, it will give you what is the version. But you can see I'm using Groovy version 3.0.5. So I'll discuss what are the versions available. Any 3-point version plus you can use it. Now there are two websites you can check. One is a Groovy hyphen lang, and then also there is Apache. Okay, from there also you can check. Now you can see if you go to the downloads, there are different versions we can see 4.0, and then you can see the 5 also there, but no one using now 5, means it's just started. So people still using 3-point versions or 4. Okay, we can download from here. I'll tell you how to download everything. And then if you observe here, it is actually using JVM, Java Virtual Machine. That means first Java we should install. Now you can see I do have a Java in my machine. So Java 15. So if you are using Groovy version 4, and then you need to install the Java latest one. But I'm just using 3, and then since long I am using, right? So 3 I installed long back, and then I'm using the same. The code is same. Okay, there is no difference. The version related. And also I installed Java. Now you can see the Java here, Java 15, it is there. So likewise, first we need to verify the dependency. For the Groovy dependency is Java mandatory. You need to install that. On top of it, we have to install Groovy. We'll discuss that how to install. And if you check the Groovy version itself, it is always verifying the Java it is available or not. See, it is checking the Java version. Now, after that, what we need to do? So let's say now this is my path. Okay, maybe I'm using this as a workspace, or as a workspace means it's like a project, and I want to write all my Groovy scripts in this location. So I created a separate folder for that. And if you want to write a Groovy script, it is very simple. We can use either any IDE. So IDEs, again, we have a lot of IDEs. You can use Eclipse. Eclipse we can use to write a Groovy program. Or if you install Groovy, we will also get Groovy console. We can also use directly this Groovy console. Or let's say I want to just use, instead of these two, maybe some other IDEs if you want to use. There are a lot of IDEs, right? So Eclipse I am using. I'll tell you how to work with this. Or maybe if you are aware of any other IDEs like Autumn we have, and then also Visual Studio Code we have. So we can use any IDE, Visual Studio Code you can use. You can use Eclipse, you can use anything. Or let's say I don't want to use any IDE, but I want to write Groovy script. That is also possible. You can directly use normal text editor. So in this demo, we'll see just normal text editor here, how to run. So most of the times administrators use normal text editors only, but we should also know how to use IDE, maybe Visual Studio Code or something, Eclipse like that. But I'm writing here directly in the text editor. See, println is a function. I want to print what? Hello world. So just write hello. And then I'm save as. So the Groovy script extension is .groovy. So I'm writing like script1.groovy. Extension mandatory. And save as type we use all types and then save. So I saved this file, and then if you open the command prompt, you can check with the dir command, and you can see there is a script1.groovy file. So this is the script file. So how to execute? We use a Groovy interpreter name, Groovy, and then script1.groovy. So we'll get output hello world here. That is simple, right? So you don't need to write all the class statement, nothing. But still, let's say I want to run this Java code. As I told, you can also run the Java code, right? I'm just copying as it is what I copied from Google. And then I'm writing here. And then execute. Save and execute. See now, we're getting the Java code output as well. But if you want to run with Java, we cannot directly run Java, then the file name, right? So if you want to run with Java, first you need to compile that with Java C. It will generate dot class file. Then later we have to execute that. But with the Groovy interpreter, directly we are getting the output here. It is not creating any dot class file. Internally it creates, but it is not generating any dot class file here explicitly. You'll understand this part later. As I told how we can import Java libraries and then Groovy file directly, we'll understand that. So here the basic thing we understood now, okay, the dependency with Java. Also we understood like the importance with the Groovy, like you can directly use the Java code or Groovy code. But what exactly we are going to cover, okay? So first we'll start with, let's say I'm taking like this is a module one. So in the module one, we'll first discuss all the Groovy basics. So in the Groovy basics, we'll try to understand how to install Groovy, where we can check the documentation, and then how to write a Groovy program, and then what is compiler, what is interpreter, with practical examples we'll discuss here. Also comments, what are the different types of comments available, those things we will cover. So this all the Groovy basics. And then the module 2 will discuss about variables. So again here we have a variables, like variables we are using to store the data. Variables we are using to store the data. But there are different types of variables. We call it as a scalar variable. It holds only one value. And then we do have a collections. Collections means maybe like I want to store something multiple values, and then we can use here array variable. Array, or we call it as a sequence, or we call it as a list. If you are good in some other language, Python, we call it as a, in Python list we call it as. In programming language we are calling as a array. But there is a difference, okay? In programming languages, array means collection of similar data type, but in Groovy, collection of any data. Like that we can write. And then we have a hash maps. So hash map is nothing but it's like a dictionary. So these are the variables, different types. Like scalar will understand how to define integer value, float value, string value, boolean value, like that. And collections will discuss how to define a multiple values in a variable. What is the importance of that? How to access the value? How to replace the value? And we do have a mutable and immutable concepts here. So we'll try to understand what is mutable, how to check that. And what is immutable, how to check that. What is the difference between mutable and immutable? What are the mutable objects available? What are the immutable objects available? So this is more important whenever if you are learning the Groovy, okay? Because if you are not aware of these variables and internally what is happening, if you are not aware mutable and immutable, and most of the times we'll get a confusion. We should know internally how the data it is modifying in the original object. How to check that object. So first of all, what is object? So these are all the things we'll understand here. And in the module 3, we'll concentrate on operators. So every language we have these operators like arithmetic operators, and we have a relational operators, greater than, less than, right? Greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, like that. And logical operators, and or not. So we do have assignment operator, increment decrement operators, range operator, concatenation, repetition. There are a list of operators. So all the list of operators we will discuss at once, because if you know all the operators, it will be very easy to work with conditional statements and loops, because most of the conditional statements like flow controls we use operators only, logical operators, or maybe comparisons, right? So that is greater than, less than symbols we use. So that's the reason first we should know all the list of operators, and then we will start conditional statements. So the conditional statements here, this is more important if you want to work with any like conditions like true false things you need to write and then need to verify based on it. So here we will see a lot of use cases. Also I'll provide everyday tasks, okay? You have to complete that, because while writing the conditional statements we apply some logics, right? Let's say for example I want to check the given number is even number or odd number. I'm just giving very basic understanding. So how we can write that condition to verify the given number is even or odd? So that is based on the style of programming. And similarly, let's say I want to write with the Groovy style also. Maybe I want to verify where the file exists or not, or something, the file path exists or not. So we'll understand both the styles. So here we have a list of conditional statements, like we have a simple if, and we have if else, and we have a later if, and we have a nested if, and we have a switch case like this. So each and everything one by one we will discuss here. And similarly, we do have a loops. So loops, again, we have a while loop, we have a for loop, and for each, that is actually for in. We'll discuss more about this. And the loop control statements, simply we write a continuous statement and break statement. So this is the main important concept in Groovy. Every language, basically, if you want to implement any logics, and then we should be more clear on this part. So we will discuss syntaxes, use cases, examples, and some tasks, like something assignments. Okay, so that you'll get complete idea here. And once if you are good with this, and then we will move into the some, simply we can say, intermediate level, that is working with file. So simply file handling. So how to read the data from the file using with Groovy? How to write data to the file? How to append data to the file? Right. The file handling concept more important, because if you are aware of this, how to read normal text files, and then later it is easy to understand working with a JSON file or working with any other extension files like that. So we'll see here how to read the data, how to write data to the file, those things. And then we have a exception handling. Let's say I'm getting some error. So there are two types of error. One is a compilation error and runtime errors. So I want to handle all the runtime errors using with exception handling. Compilation error means that is a human error. That is our responsibility. As a programmer, we should fix that. Like syntax errors, that is compilation error. Runtime errors, at the time of execution we'll get it. So those type of like runtime errors we can handle using with exception handling here. So we have a different types of exception handling. We will see how to write that. And after that, in the module 5, we'll see the deep dive regular expression. So this is again more and more important to search and display the data based on the patterns, right? So something like a search and display the data. So pattern matching, we can say text manipulation, right? So text manipulation. So first to see, we are understanding how to read the data, and then later we are understanding how to search the data. So I have some log file and I want to search only error log, only wherever error matches. So here it comes a lot of validations, like for example, mobile number validation, how to do that, or something email ID validation, right? How to do vehicle number validation. So we write some regular expression using with wildcard characters. So we have a list of wildcard characters, meta characters, anchors, identifiers. Will understand each and everything, what is the behavior of that, and then how to use that specific wildcards or meta characters using with Groovy. So this is more important basically. If you want to search the data from somewhere, and then without knowing this, it is difficult. So here we will see deep dive. And then module 6, sorry, the module 6 here, something advanced level, will start working with functions. See, the functions again more and more important in every language because I don't want to write the same code repeated times. So the good programmer avoid, you know, the repetitions. So I means instead of writing the same code again and again, we can create a function and then we can reuse that. So functions we are using for reusability. But in these functions, again, we have a built-in functions. Also, we have a user-defined function that is called custom functions. I want to create my own function, yes, we can create it. So you can create a function and then you can reuse it. You can call that function anytime if it is required. So we'll see how to create our own function and then what is the importance of that. And see, we use generally def, okay, to create a function, but the same def we also use to create a variable. But we will understand the difference when we create a variable, why we are using def. So here with functions, we'll try to understand that, okay, with arguments, without arguments, how we can create a function and what is local variable, what is global variable, and what is return function, how to use that. And there are some function arguments like keyword arguments and default arguments. We'll discuss each and everything in these functions. The only reason if you are good with functions, there is a more important concept which is modules. See, the module I'm writing here, this is like a just for our understanding, it's like a one unit, right? But I'm talking about the modules concept in Groovy. So this is more and more important. So you can import the Groovy module. You can also import Java library. Module is nothing but it's a library. So I told already, whenever if you create any variable, let's say, see now I'm trying to create something. So this is my code. I'm going to comment all the lines now. Multi-line comments I'm giving. And I'm creating some variable, okay, println a. I'm trying to print something like this. So generally, the a value 10 it is printing. And I'm checking here something dot, get class. This is a function, okay, or we can call it as a method. Now, if you observe, okay, you try to understand this. A dot get class is a one method. I am using what is the type of this variable. I want to verify that. What Groovy is doing, immediately it imported one Java module. This is a module I'm talking about, okay, library or module. Now you can see class, it's a Java. From the Java, it verified this a value and saying that integer. So internally, it is automatically importing the Java library. It's not actually using the Groovy libraries, right? It is everything depending on the Java internal. But there is a Groovy code. I executed a Groovy method, but it is checking from the Java library, java.line. So these are built in, already available in the Java, these libraries. But I want to develop my own library, which is simply we call it as a module. Module is nothing but simply we can say a collection of functions. So how to write that collection of functions in a separate file and then how to import that? We use a import. See here I'm not importing anything. But in the advanced level, we create some collection of functions in separate file and then we try to import that and then we import the module and then whatever the property required only we call that property. So this is more and more and more important in the real time. So we will try to understand how to create your own module and how to import the properties. how to create a Groovy module, how to create some Java file, and then how to import both in the Groovy code, and working with something JSON. What is the module for it? How to work with JSON? So working with the JSON or working with any other platform related, you'll get idea if you know how to use the model, how to create the model, how to import that, how to create alias for the modeling. Okay, so this is important concept here. And once if it is good, and then in the module 8 here, we'll also discuss more about object-oriented programming. See, as I told, object-oriented programming is not required most of the times, but since there is a dependency for Java, we should also know here in Groovy how to use object-oriented programming. And now, when we use object-oriented programming, everything will understand Groovy style. So I mean, say everything object-oriented programming is same, concept is same everywhere, but I'm not going to use as it is Java code. I'll write based on the Groovy style. So here we will understand what is class, what is object first, right? What is class and what is object, how to create object. So whenever if you are using class, then simply we can say this is an object oriented programming, right? What is class, how to create that, and what are the class properties available. So simply we also use like instance variables, static variables, or we can say class variables, and we have a non-static variables, and we have a methods, we have a constructors, how to define a constructor, how to define a method, what is encapsulation, and what is polymorphism. In that polymorphism, what is method overloading, overriding. We'll see everything practical examples. And what is inheritance, what are the different types of inheritances available, how to use that, and what is abstraction, how to hide the data. There are multiple concepts again in object oriented programming. I told that this object oriented programming concepts optional for administration related whenever if you are using with something platform related. If you're already working with some platform, and then if you are using with the Groovy, it's optional. But still, I told it is best practice to understand these concepts because we have a dependency Java here. Java is always what most of the times you can see the all completely object oriented in Java. Even if you want to understand that Java code, if you are using some Java library, if you are good with the object oriented, it is very easy. So this is the content we are actually covering, and maybe some other concepts like command line arguments we have. So these all the things again we will cover it. Okay, so just I highlighted here what the main content, but there are some other topics also we'll cover it, right? So the duration, if you see the complete duration, it takes duration generally 20 to 25 hours it takes. Okay, complete duration. So this is the content, and also you will get every day. So first 2 3 sessions only the notes you'll get it, and maybe from fourth fifth session you'll receive the tasks as well. Everyday task it will be there. Everyday task you should complete, and everyday notes and recording we will share. So once the session completed, you'll get the notes and as well as recording session as well. And mostly daily 1 hour session, and it depends like if you want a weekend also, we can also plan weekends but that is depending on like if everyone available we'll plan it, otherwise we'll skip the weekends. So this is the thing, and then you let me know the timing schedule and all. I'm planning for 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. IST like that, and then it's open for questions. Now if you have any questions, you can ask me the questions. Let me stop the recording and then we'll discuss that related timings and other questions if you have. Okay.